Hi students, Dr. Vic here. Here to talk about production decisions for the firm and derive the supply curve. If you look on down the website, I ask you to look at topic 3 and topic 4. If you go through that first, this video will make a bit more sense to you. So we're talking about per unit costs. Firms, our model firms get the best information when they're looking on a per unit basis. And so that's why we want to look at not overall production, overall costs, but a decision specifically on the margin. Should you make one more batch? Should you make one more set of units? Here where we have quantity as it goes up, as you scale up production, 5, 10, 15, 20,000. You want to find that right level. How much of this good or service should you produce? And we're talking about something that's in the $20 to $40 range. So I'll leave it to y'all to think of your own example. So this is the firm's production to cost relationship. There's 4 per unit costs that we look at. First is the average fixed cost. Average fixed costs, which start very high and then fall rapidly. I'm making that in a kind of darkish color because it's not going to have lots of effects on our per unit decisions. You just have to attain a high scale for this one to really make those costs of factories or intellectual capital or upfront costs you have to achieve scale in this example to really make these come down. Okay, second is the averaged fixed costs and average variable cost, AVC. And AVC has kind of 2 things going on, which I talked about also in the website. First, you have this part that falls at first. Okay, this is as you start to scale up, you hire more people. Those people can specialize in different aspects of production. Overall, you become more productive as a firm. Not in each individual. Each individual is simply specializing. So you're getting some gains to specialization in that your variable costs are distributed across production are falling. But at some point, you only have fixed capital here. So you start adding more and more people to that capital, and you're hiring more people, paying more hourly wages, but there's only so much more you can squeeze out of your production process. You get too many cooks in the kitchen. So this is the limits of specialization. This is the reality of having limited capital. And again, in the long run, you can add more capital, you can expand your factory, things like that. But in the short run, you can only squeeze so much out of that sponge. The third one is average total costs. So that's something that starts off again very high, falls down with fixed costs, but starts to rise eventually. So I'll do something like this here. And again, both averaged fixed cost, while average fixed cost continues to go down, average variable and average total cost each have a minimum point. So your average total cost is here. So this is average total cost. This is ATC. ATC. AVC. And AFC. Okay, and average total cost is just the sum of these two. That's approximately right. Our final one is marginal costs. And what marginal costs do are They go through these two lines. Again, they start off falling and then start to rise with variable and total costs. Okay, so this is our marginal cost curve up here. All right, so you should be able to generate some kind of graph like this. Just a few things. About 15,000 and at $30 right here. 15,000, about $30 per unit in 15,000 units. Overall, that's our minimum average total costs. So that's going to be the cheapest that we could possibly produce this thing. That's the scale, the level where we have the most efficient use of workers given the level of capital we have. But that's not automatically where we decide to produce. Okay, so these are the internals of the firm. Well, how do we decide how much to produce? Well, that's dependent on market conditions here. Okay, so we move to the market and we see that there's other suppliers. I have two scenarios called D1, D2. Let's say D1 may be a time such as now where there's extremely low demand. People are not getting out buying things. So that's a problem for our business. So we would take our market signals that that the price of this good is around $25, $27 or so. Okay, so we take that price. Let's make this a little bit smaller. We take that price and we bring it into what's going on in our firm. Okay, we're price takers. We can't automatically just set the price. If we set it too low, as you'll see, you go out of business. If you set it too high, you don't get any customers. Okay, so this is about $25. All right. Now, every time we sell a good for $25, that's revenue that comes in. Okay, so that's why we call this our fifth curve, the marginal revenue curve. Okay, so this is about $25. We are a price taker in this low demand environment. Okay, so we're taking the market price from market supply and demand. We're price takers. We're going to try to sell our goods for $25. So this is the decision process that we take now. As I talked about before, marginal revenue, our first decision is how much do we make? If we make too few, our marginal costs may be low, but we're not selling an additional unit at a higher marginal revenue. If we're not doing that, then we're not getting that extra money, revenue over costs. Okay, so we would do that. We would sell at 5,000 units. We would move up to 10,000 units. We would move all the way up to about here. Okay, this is going to be the point that we would sell at, and we can call that 1,200 or about 12K. Okay. So we'd sell about, we'd produce 12,000 when the price is $25. We'd sell 12,000 of these. So that's the equilibrium quantity. I'm going to call this Q star low, and I'm going to call this $25 P star low. Okay. So our first option, or our first decision is made. We make $12,000 of these units. The second decision is, should we even open the doors in this environment? Okay, there's pretty low demand. If we open up our doors, so we already have our land rented, our capital rented. By opening up our doors, what do we have to do? We have to hire people to come in. We have to bring in the other variable costs. So the second decision we make is, does our revenues at 12,000 units, does that cover our variable costs? And we see here the average variable cost curve is down here closer to 20. We're up here at 25, so that means every unit we make and sell, we're covering about $5 of that over our variable costs. We're essentially bringing ourselves out of the hole a little bit, okay? So a lot of these restaurants are seeing this. It's worth it, worth their time. They've already invested in their kitchens and paying rent on their land. They can bring in their waits, their chefs, their cooks, their delivery people, and they're going to be able to pay those wages and make a little bit more money. So in the short run, they would stay open. Okay. The third decision is at this level of production, do you cover all your costs? If you're not covering all your costs, then you're going to go out of business. You're going to be taking losses instead of getting profits, and that's not a sustainable thing unless you're getting some kind of outside funds, which we're not in this case. So that decision comes here. You have to compare your revenues to not your variable costs or your fixed cost, but both of them, your total costs. Okay. So here, total costs are about $30. We're only making 25 per unit. So each unit is costing us about $30 to make in wages, rents, ingredients, etc. We're only making 25 on those. So each unit we're making here is essentially a loss. Okay, so we make a $5 loss here. We make approximately a $5 loss for all of these. So we make this triangle here, or this rectangle, sorry, that's about 5 units high and 12,000 wide. So our loss here, our profit or loss, is Q star times average total price, average total cost minus P star. So that's 12,000 times 30 minus 25. Okay. So we're losing about, what is that? $60,000. We have a loss of $60,000. That we can maybe do that in the short run, but once our rents come up, we're not going to be able to do that anymore. Okay. So that's the summary of option 1. Option 2, you go through those 3 same decision points. Okay. What is the market price? What level do I sell things at? What is my short run decision? And what is my long run decision? That's what I'd like you to do in a high demand environment. So replicate these graphs, and then I've given you the scenario in the low demand scenario. You replicate this decision process for the high demand scenario. All right, good luck.